Hi everyone, so we're in week 4 and we're going to be looking at physical development as it applies to children and adolescents. So the first source that I looked at was what I would consider a very traditional article. It really, looked and felt and read like the typical peer-reviewed types of white papers that I've read in the past. And it comes from the Journal of Early Adolescence, and it's a study from 2015. One of the real things that struck me about while I was reading the articles and made me think about the chicken and the egg. So we all know about, the joke or maybe the philosophical question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? So I'll give you the two sides of it. The first is the watching of internet pornography. One of the reasons I'm interested in this topic is because I have a 12-and-a-half-year-old son. I have not caught him watching pornography yet, but, I know he's developing and growing, and I also know he spends a lot of time watching YouTube and video, and so I'm expecting that there will be a chakra one day. And in this article, they were looking at two specific ideas. And the first was, what is the level of pubescent maturation in an adolescent boy, and what is the degree of sensation seeking, and how that relates to pornography viewing. Just some context for this article, it was based on a longitudinal study of Belgian boys ages between 12 and 15. So that was the group that was studied. And if one is to think about watching internet pornography, what the study found and really premised some further research on was that the level of pubescent maturation and the degree of sensation seeking actually comes first. So it's the mediators and moderators that determine the likelihood that the adolescent boys in the study would be viewing a lot of internet pornography. So I'm not necessarily interested in pornography in itself, but I really am interested in the influence of frequent use of web-based media on adolescent boys. And again, I'm coming at it because I have a son. He'll be a teenager soon, and I find this topic interesting as a mother, but also see how it relates in many ways to education in general. A second part of the research was that they found that these teenage adolescents who spent an excessive amount of time watching internet pornography actually showed a decline in academic achievement. This was determined as a result not of their brain melting because they'd been watching pornography, but it's the simple fact that the more time they spend watching internet pornography, the less time they're working on their studies, and they're more likely to be receiving failing grades. Possible mediators and moderators that were not studied in the research but were brought up by the authors were things such as level of self-discipline in the individual. Perhaps these individuals would not really be strongly disciplined study students anyway. And the second one is they specifically targeted how much time these adolescents were watching pornography and not taking into account the fact that it could be internet media in total that is leading to the problems with the grades. Another thing, of course, is they looked at a very specific group of individuals, and that was Belgian boys of a certain age, and that obviously would have its own mediators and moderators when you delve a little bit further into that. My second source was an article that I really at first wasn't going to use, but it appealed to me because it talked about all the things that as a mother and as a user of media myself, it expressed all the fears and worries and thoughts that bounce around in my head on a daily basis. So this is a peer-reviewed article, but it's put out by the American Academy of Pediatrics. Instead of reading like a typical sort of research white paper, it really tends to be more of a suggestion for pediatricians, giving them highlights of studies, and I would say probably even perpetuating a certain culture and ideology amongst pediatricians and sharing that with the group. this quote seemed to really encapsulate what their idea was, is that they're concerned by evidence about the potential harmful effects of media messages and images. And what are those harmful effects? Well, they list several. The main ones were excessive speed and distracted driving. It was also the sexualization, both of self and of the other. Lack of sleep, which we've heard come up many times with peers, that lack of sleep is a real problem with adolescents and young adults. And then the obvious one that also is often on people's mind these days is obesity. What was interesting about this article, it is a call to action. So pediatricians were advised that for every new patient that comes into their office, they should be asking 2 media-based questions, which are, what is the child's daily consumption of recreational screen time? And does the child have a television or internet-connected device in their bedroom? I found the first one very interesting because I think the idea of recreational also is a little bit misleading, in the sense that we know we want our children to read. Is that recreational? And what if a child is reading on a screened device? And what if that screened device, leading into question 2, is in their bedroom? So I think there's a lot to unpack there, but these 2 questions show the presumptions that the Pediatrician Academy is working on. The authors failed to raise many potential mediators and moderators. They didn't talk about socio-economic status, gender, specific ages, cultures. They really painted it as a very wide, broad, vanilla type, generic concept. And for me, that is one of its biggest failings, because I think that pediatricians should be aware of the fact that various mediators and moderators should be considered. So those are the 2 articles that I am covering, and we will be discussing further in our class.